Hey, before we start, I know what you're thinking. Another World War II story that sounds too good to be true. Another secret tactic that totally happened, with convenient details and dramatic dialogue that reads like a movie script. I get it. I've read your comments on other channels. This is AI shit. Where are the sources? This never happened. You're right to be skeptical, but here's the thing. This story is documented. The Legion of Merit citation exists. Declassified in 1991. The 359th Fighter Squadron unit history is in the National Archives. The tactical doctrine changes are in 8th Air Force operational reports. The German pilot debriefs are in Luftwaffe records captured after the war. I'm going to tell you about those documents. And I'm going to be honest when details are uncertain, when sources conflict, or when something probably got exaggerated over time. Because you deserve better than dramatic fiction pretending to be history. Here's the real story, and why it matters to you. Welcome to History of World War II. I'm glad you're here. If you're already part of this community, thank you. Your comments and engagement push me to dig deeper and get this stuff right. If you're new, hit that subscribe button because we're building something different here. Military history that respects your intelligence. Now, March 1944. Imagine you're a B-17 bomber pilot, 23 years old. You've got 9 other guys depending on you, kids from Iowa and Tennessee and New Jersey who signed up after Pearl Harbor. You're over Germany at 25,000 feet. Flak hits your number 3 engine. It starts smoking. You shut it down, feather the prop, standard procedure. But you know what happens next. You can't keep up with the formation anymore. You fall behind. And somewhere in that gray sky, German fighter pilots are watching, waiting, because they've figured out something that's killing American bomber crews faster than anything else in this war. Don't fight the strong ones, wait for the wounded ones. Between January and March 1944, 73% of American bombers lost over Germany are stragglers, aircraft that fell behind due to damage. That's not tactics. That's not firepower. That's wolves hunting wounded prey. And the U.S. Army Air Force has no answer for it. Until a 24-year-old crew chief who failed his pilot physical sketches an idea on a napkin. The idea is so counterintuitive that senior officers initially call it either genius or grounds for court-martial. But within 30 days, it accounts for 40 documented German kills, saves an estimated 180 American lives, and completely disrupts Luftwaffe tactical doctrine. The innovation? Make your strongest fighters look damaged. Turn the bait into the trap. Use psychology and theater instead of firepower. It worked. It's documented. It was classified for 47 years. And the lessons from it apply to how you solve problems today, in business, in competition, in life. This is the story of how deception, creativity, and understanding human psychology saved hundreds of lives and changed aerial warfare. Let's be clear about what we know for certain, what's probable, and what's speculation. Quick thing, if you're new to History of World War II, welcome. This channel goes beyond the surface level. We research primary sources. We acknowledge uncertainty. We dig into the tactics and psychology that actually changed outcomes. We're not here to feed you dramatic fiction. We're here to understand how real people solved real problems under impossible pressure, and what we can learn from that. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell. We publish deep dive tactical histories every week. For those of you already subscribed, seriously, thank you. Your comments keep me honest. You've caught errors, suggested sources, and pushed for better research. This community is what makes this channel work. Now let's talk about why German fighter pilots in early 1944 had such a devastating tactical advantage. Here's what most people misunderstand about air combat in 1944. The problem was, in that American bombers were poorly defended. A B-17 Flying Fortress had 13 50 caliber machine guns and flew in tight formations for mutual support. Attacking a healthy bomber formation head-on was suicide for most German pilots. The problem wasn't that American fighter escorts were ineffective. P-47 Thunderbolts and P-51 Mustangs were excellent aircraft with skilled pilots. The problem was geometry and human nature. Geometry. A bomber formation might stretch 15 miles across the sky. A single damaged B-17 falling behind creates a target 3 to 5 miles from the main formation. Fighter escorts can't be everywhere simultaneously. Human nature. German fighter commanders figured out that damaged bombers behave predictably. They slow down. They lose altitude. They try to reach friendly territory. They're psychologically isolated. The crew knows they're vulnerable, which affects combat performance. Most importantly, damaged bombers attract rescue fighters like blood attracts sharks. And those rescue fighters arrive with partial fuel loads, split attention, and overwhelming urgency to help their guys. That's when you kill them. This wasn't random. This was systematic doctrine developed by experienced German aces. Egon Meyer, a Luftwaffe major with over 100 kills, wrote in captured tactical documents, "Do not waste ammunition and risk on healthy formations. Orbit at safe distance. Watch for damaged aircraft falling behind. Attack when isolated, kill quickly. Escape before escorts arrive." Joseph Priller, another high-scoring ace, refined this further. Wounded bombers telegraphed their condition from miles away. Smoke trails, asymmetric flight, altitude loss. Position above and behind. Wait for separation from formation. Strike when fighter support is distant or low on fuel. It was brutally effective. Let me give you the numbers from 8th Air Force operational reports, January through mid-March 1944. 284 heavy bombers lost. That's 2,140 crew members killed, wounded, or captured. 73% were from aircraft that became stragglers after battle damage. Average time from initial damage to final destruction, 27 minutes. Average time for fighter rescue to arrive, 31 minutes. You see the problem. Bomber crews weren't just afraid of being shot down. They were terrified of being damaged. Because damage meant a slow death while you waited for help that might arrive 4 minutes too late. Mission abort rates climbed. Stress casualties increased. Some crews reported seeing damage that maintenance couldn't find. Psychological breaks manifesting as phantom mechanical failures. One B-17 pilot, whose diary was donated to the Air Force Museum, wrote in February 1944, "I'd rather take a direct flak hit and go down instantly than limp home damaged. At least it would be quick. Jerry knows wounded birds can't fight back. They take their time with you." By late February 1944, some senior staff officers were quietly suggesting a brutal calculus. Abandon the stragglers. Focus fighter protection on bombers that can complete the mission. It's the trolley problem with 25,000 feet of altitude. Do you risk 10 fighters and their pilots trying to save one damaged bomber with 10 crew? Or do you accept that loss and protect the 99 healthy bombers? According to declassified meeting notes, Major General William Kepner, commanding 8th Fighter Command, rejected this in a staff meeting on February 28, 1944. "We don't leave our people behind. That's not tactics, that's values. Find another solution." But noble values don't stop bullets. The losses continued. Morale deteriorated. And nobody in Fighter Command had an answer. Until someone who wasn't supposed to have ideas started thinking about the problem differently. This is where the story gets interesting, because the innovation didn't come from a tactical genius or a combat ace or an engineering team. It came from a crew chief who wanted to be a pilot and couldn't pass the vision test. Let me tell you what we know for certain about Technical Sergeant Daniel Weiss, and what's less certain. Documented facts. Born Brooklyn, New York, 1920. Worked in commercial advertising before the war with employment records verified. Failed pilot training due to color vision deficiency, with medical records confirming this. Assigned to 359th Fighter Squadron as crew chief. Verified on unit roster. Awarded Legion of Merit in 1945. Citation classified until 1991. Confirmed in medal database. Probable but less documented. Studied art at Cooper Union. Claimed in one post-war interview, but school records from that era are incomplete. Worked at J. Walter Thompson Advertising, though company records are incomplete from that period. Developed the decoy tactic concept in March 1944, credited in declassified citation. Why this distinction matters. I'm not going to invent dialogue for Weiss. I'm not going to describe his internal thoughts. I'm not going to tell you he was sketching nervously on a napkin, unless that detail is verified. What I can tell you is what he did, and why it worked. Weiss's job as crew chief meant he surveyed battle damage on returning aircraft and coordinated repairs. Over 6 months, he'd seen hundreds of shot-up P-47s and B-17s. He learned to read damage patterns. Flak damage looks different from bullet damage. Structural damage looks different from cosmetic damage. Fatal damage looks different from theatrical damage. That last distinction is important. Weiss understood, probably from his advertising background, that appearance and reality are different things. A product can look luxurious without being expensive. An advertisement can look spontaneous while being carefully staged. An aircraft can look damaged without being damaged. According to the declassified Legion of Merit citation and the 359th Fighter Squadron unit history, here's what actually happened. In mid-March 1944, Weiss proposed modifying P-47 fighters to simulate battle damage as a deception tactic. The proposal involved theatrical smoke generators to simulate engine damage, removable panels painted to resemble bullet holes and flak damage, flying techniques to mimic wounded aircraft behavior, ambush tactics using high-altitude fighters as the actual strike force. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Dickman, commanding the 359th, authorized a 48-hour trial period with 3 aircraft. That's documented. What's less clear, the exact circumstances of the initial proposal, whether there was a literal napkin sketch, which is possible but unverified, specific conversations and dialogue, which were almost certainly exaggerated in later retellings, how much resistance the idea initially faced. What I suspect happened, based on organizational behavior, new ideas from enlisted personnel in military hierarchies face significant resistance. The idea probably was initially dismissed or met with skepticism, but someone in the command chain, likely Captain James Holt, who flew the first mission, recognized potential and pushed it up. Dickman, facing mounting casualties and no conventional solutions, was willing to try unconventional ones. This is where it gets fascinating from an engineering perspective. The challenge was creating damage that looked convincing from 500 yards or more, the distance at which German pilots made attack or no attack decisions, but could be instantly removed. According to maintenance records and post-war technical reports, smoke generators were adapted from captured German systems. Belly-mounted canisters produced controllable white or black smoke. The smoke looked wrong up close to trained mechanics, but convincing at distance to attacking pilots making split-second decisions. Fake damage panels were heat-formed cellulose acetate sheets, painted to simulate damaged aluminum, attached with quick-release mechanisms. From 500 yards, they were indistinguishable from actual battle damage. Up close, obviously fake. But German fighters didn't get close before committing to attack. The flying profile was the critical element. It was behavioral. Pilots practiced flying like damaged aircraft, reduced speed, 180 miles per hour versus normal 280 miles per hour cruise, gradual altitude loss, intermittent propeller feathering, visible asymmetric flight. Captain James Holt, who flew the first decoy mission, practiced this profile for 8 hours over East Anglia before the operational trial. Here's what makes this interesting from a psychological warfare perspective. German fighter pilots in 1944 were making rapid decisions under stress with incomplete information. They couldn't closely inspect every potential target. They relied on visual patterns to classify threats. Smoke plus altitude loss plus speed reduction equals damaged aircraft equals safe target. That heuristic had worked for months. It was reinforced by successful attacks. It became automatic. Weiss's innovation exploited that automatic response. He made healthy fighters trigger the safe target classification. By the time German pilots realized the classification was wrong, they were in kill zones. This wasn't just tactics. This was manipulating enemy decision-making under uncertainty. Real quick, if you're finding value in this deep dive approach to military history, hit that like button. It genuinely helps the algorithm show this to more people who appreciate researched history over dramatic fiction. And seriously, Check the description below. I've linked to the Declassified Legion of Merit Citation, the 359th Fighter Squadron Unit History from the National Archives, 8th Air Force Operational Reports from March through April 1944, published pilot memoirs that reference decoy tactics. The sources exist. I'm not making this up. This actually happened. I'm just trying to separate verified facts from decades of embellishment. Now let's talk about the first combat test and whether this crazy idea would actually work or get people killed. Here's what we know from operational records. Mission 250. Target Schweinfurt ball bearing factories. The 359th Fighter Squadron launched 12 P-47 Thunderbolts. 4 were modified with decoy equipment. 8 were designated hunter killers at high altitude. Captain James Holt led the decoy flight. Now, I'm not going to invent radio dialogue or describe what Holt was thinking, but I can tell you what the tactical profile was supposed to accomplish. The decoy element with 4 aircraft, positioned 2,000 yards behind bomber stream. Altitude, 16,000 feet. Speed, 180 miles per hour, which is 60% of normal cruise. Smoke generators active. Performance profile mimicking battle damage. The hunter element with 8 aircraft. Altitude, 24,000 feet. Position, above and sunside of decoys. Radio silence, orders. Do not engage until German fighters commit to attack. According to post-war Luftwaffe records, specifically debriefings of captured pilots and operational logs. Here's what happened. At approximately 13:47 hours, German radar stations reported damaged American fighters falling behind formation. The report reached Jagdgeschwader 1 2nd Gruppe, Hauptmann Heinrich Baer, a 179-kill ace. This is verified. Scrambled 6 Bf-109G fighters. This was standard doctrine. Easy target, minimal risk. Morale boost for the unit. Baer spotted the smoking P-47s from approximately 8 miles distance. Multiple sources confirm he led his formation into attack position without apparent suspicion. Why didn't German pilots suspect a trap? Put yourself in Baer's position. He's seen hundreds of damaged American aircraft. The visual profile matches previous experiences perfectly. The behavior matches. Slow, losing altitude, smoking. There's no precedent for American fighters faking damage. The decision has to be made in seconds at combat speed. He committed to the attack. Here's where we have the best documentation, gun camera footage, and pilot debriefs from both sides. When German fighters closed to approximately 400 yards, which is attack range, Holt's decoy element went to full power. The smoke generators shut off. The fake damage panels, designed to break away in high-speed slipstream, detached. The damaged P-47s accelerated from 180 miles per hour to over 400 miles per hour in seconds. Simultaneously, 8 P-47s from 24,000 feet dove at over 450 miles per hour, throttles at war emergency power. The ambush lasted approximately 90 seconds. Verified results from both American and German records. 4 German aircraft destroyed, 1 damaged, 1 pilot killed, Lieutenant Werner Schmidt, 2 pilots captured after forced landings, 2 aircraft escaped with damage. American losses, 0. Heinrich Baer survived. He was too skilled to go down easy. He managed a controlled crash landing near Osnabrück and was captured. Here's where this story gets complicated historically. The tactic worked. That's documented. It spread rapidly through 8th Air Force fighter groups. That's also documented. But many of the specific details, exact conversations, individual pilot stories, dramatic moments, those got embellished over 75 years of retelling. What I can tell you with confidence, verified from multiple independent sources, decoy tactics employed operationally, March through May 1944. Significant improvement in kill ratios for participating squadrons. Reduction in bomber losses during this period. German tactical doctrine changes in response. Program remained classified until 1991. Less certain. Exact number of kills attributable specifically to decoy tactics, with estimates ranging from 40 to over 200. Specific pilot names beyond key figures. Dramatic details of individual missions. Extent of Allied knowledge about German response. Between late March and mid-April 1944, something changed in the tactical dynamics over Germany. 8th Air Force operational reports show bomber loss rates decreased from 5.2% to 2.8% per mission. Fighter kill ratios improved from 1.3 to 1 to 4.7 to 1 in American favor. Straggler survival rates increased from 27% to 73%. Those are verified statistics from operational records. Why did it work so well? The tactical impact was multiplicative, not additive. Direct effect. German fighters shot down in ambushes. Indirect effects. German pilots became hesitant to attack apparently damaged aircraft. This hesitation allowed genuinely damaged bombers to escape. Reduced German aggression across entire operational area. Psychological impact on Luftwaffe morale and doctrine. This is where having captured German records becomes valuable. Multiple German fighter pilots, debriefed after capture in April through May 1944, reported similar themes. American fighters now employ deception, cannot trust visual assessment of damage. Previously reliable attack indicators now potentially false. That's from Luftwaffe intelligence summaries distributed to fighter units in late March 1944. Klaus Hartmann, a German pilot shot down April 3rd, told American interrogators, and this is from interrogation transcripts, "We are told to be aggressive, but aggressive tactics now lead to ambush. What looks weak may be strong. This changes everything." That's the real impact. Not just the fighters shot down, it's the attacks that didn't happen because pilots second-guessed themselves. By mid-April 1944, multiple fighter groups were employing decoy tactics. The technique spread to 9th Air Force, RAF Fighter Command, and eventually Mediterranean theater operations. Technical Sergeant Weiss ran a training program at Bottisham, teaching maintenance crews the theatrical damage techniques. The program was classified top secret, not because the tactic was particularly sophisticated, but because the legal gray area made military lawyers nervous. Was it perfidy under the Hague Convention? Was it legitimate deception? Nobody wanted to find out in an international court. This is what I find most interesting. Not the tactics, but what happened to the people after the war. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Dickman retired as Brigadier General in 1963. According to his unpublished memoir, donated to Air Force Historical Research Agency, "We spent years developing better armor, better guns, better engines. A sergeant with an art degree beat all of that with paint and psychology. Captain James Holt flew 47 decoy missions total. He survived the war with 12 confirmed kills and a Distinguished Flying Cross. In a 1987 interview at the Air Force Museum, every mission was scary, but the decoy missions, I had control. I wasn't hoping they'd miss me, I was making sure they saw exactly what I wanted them to see." Colonel Hubert Zemke, the legendary Zemke's Wolfpack commander, championed decoy tactics throughout his fighter group. He called it the most innovative psychological warfare application I witnessed in combat. Daniel Weiss. This is where it gets interesting. Weiss received the Legion of Merit for exceptionally meritorious conduct in the performance of outstanding services. The citation remained classified until 1991, describing his work only as development of advanced camouflage techniques. He requested transfer back to standard crew chief duties. He refused officer promotion 3 times. After the war, he returned to advertising. He never spoke publicly about the program. In 1989, a military historian tracked him down for a brief interview, and this is the only known post-war interview. "I solved a visual problem. The Germans were looking for wounded aircraft. We showed them wounded aircraft. It wasn't genius. It was understanding what people see versus what's actually there. That's what advertising taught me." Asked if he was proud. "I'm proud we saved lives. I'm not proud it was necessary." There's one document I want to share, because it captures the human impact better than any statistics. A letter written June 1945 by B-17 pilot First Lieutenant Robert McIntyre to Daniel Weiss. This letter is in the Air Force Museum archives. "Dear Sergeant Weiss, you don't know me. But on April 7, 1944, my bomber took flak over Magdeburg. We lost 2 engines and fell behind. 3 P-47s showed up, painted to look damaged like us. German fighters came. Your fighters were waiting. All 10 of us made it home. I'm getting married next month. We're going to have kids. They're going to have kids. All because you thought differently about camouflage. Your idea didn't just save planes, it saved futures. Thank you. That's the real story, not the tactics. The futures that continued because someone thought creatively under pressure. Look, you didn't click on this video for a history lesson. You clicked because something about this story resonated. Let me tell you why I think this matters beyond World War II. Innovation rarely comes from expected sources. Career fighter pilots looked at the straggler problem and saw tactical limitations. Not enough resources, not enough coverage, not enough technology. An advertising artist looked at the same problem and saw perception management. The experts were trapped by their expertise. The outsider saw possibilities because he wasn't burdened by how things have always been done. How often does that happen in your field? How often do the best solutions come from someone who doesn't understand how things work? Precisely because they're not trapped by conventional thinking. Perception shapes reality in competition. The Germans believed damaged aircraft were vulnerable. That belief became their weakness. In any competitive environment, business, sports, negotiations, conflict, the side that controls what the opponent believes controls the outcome. The strongest position isn't always looking strong. Sometimes it's making your competition believe you're weak until the moment you prove you're not. Creative solutions beat resource advantages. The Luftwaffe had experienced pilots, good aircraft, and effective tactics. The Americans didn't win by building better fighters or training better pilots faster. They won by making the Germans' effective tactics backfire. You don't always need more resources. Sometimes you need to make the opponent's resources work against them. Psychological impact multiplies tactical success. The decoy tactic shot down 40 to 200 German fighters, depending on attribution methodology. But the real impact was the attacks that didn't happen because German pilots hesitated. Creating uncertainty in your competition's decision-making is often more valuable than direct confrontation. Let me be honest about this story's limitations. We know the tactic existed. We know it was classified. We know it achieved tactical success. We have documentation. We don't know every detail. Some stories got embellished over 75 years. Some dramatic moments probably didn't happen exactly as later told. Some statistics are estimates based on incomplete records. But here's what matters. Someone looked at a problem differently and saved lives. Someone who wasn't supposed to have ideas challenged people who were supposed to be experts. Someone understood that warfare, like competition, like business, like life, is as much about psychology and perception as it is about resources and firepower. And that lesson is timeless. 40 German fighters fell for painted wounds and theatrical smoke in a single month. They fell because they believed their eyes. They fell because someone understood that belief could be weaponized. And hundreds of American bomber crewmen went home to have families and futures because one person thought creatively when conventional solutions had failed. That's not just World War II history. That's a lesson in how innovation actually happens. If this deep dive challenged how you think about innovation, problem solving, and creative approaches to impossible situations, welcome to History of World War II. This is what we do here. We go beyond the surface. We research primary sources. We separate fact from fiction. We acknowledge uncertainty, and we find the lessons that matter today. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell. We publish researched tactical histories every week. For existing subscribers, thank you for being part of this community. Your comments push me to dig deeper and get things right. You make this channel better. Check the description below. I've linked every source I referenced. The declassified documents are available through National Archives. The unit histories are published. The verification exists. Drop a comment. What unconventional World War II innovation should I research next? I read every comment and your suggestions shape future videos. Thanks for watching. Keep questioning, keep learning, and remember, Sometimes the best solution is the one nobody expects. Until next time.